Bang and AM. Introduction. As established in his previous academic publications, Professor John MacLeod, a distinguished scholar at the Polar University in northern Norway, had recently been awarded a $100,000 research grant. His mandate? To investigate the plight of oppressed women in Southeast Asia's entertainment industry, specifically in Thailand and the Philippines. John's research project sought to expose the Western media's superficial reliance on sensationalist buzzwords like trafficking, abuse, and exploitation. Such reductive reporting, John argued in his grant proposal, completely overlooked a fundamental macroeconomic reality. For many women in underdeveloped nations, entering the entertainment industry was not forced subjugation, but a rational, entrepreneurial escape from the soul-crushing oppression of global capitalism. Without the safety net of a Scandinavian welfare state, providing for a family often fell squarely on the shoulders of dutiful daughters. To properly study this phenomenon, standard qualitative methods were insufficient. John rejected the cold, distant role of a fly-on-the-wall observer. True ethnographic understanding required complete immersion in the field. In order to truly comprehend the system of exploitation, Professor John reasoned, he had a moral and methodological duty to temporarily step into the shoes of the oppressor. Naturally, this noble academic pursuit led him straight to Sukhumvit Road in Bangkok. Field work on Sukhumvit Road. Around 2014, Sukhumvit Road was a living laboratory of global inequality. Beggars, street hawkers, and scammers lined the pavement like a scene straight out of 19th-century London, as portrayed by Charles Dickens in Oliver Twist. Yet, as John noted in his field journal, this was not Victorian England. These women were not the morally condemned outcasts of George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion. Rather, they were the modern spiritual descendants of Daniel Defoe's Moll Flanders and Roxana, sharp-witted, resourceful entrepreneurs using their personal assets to navigate a rigged global economy. Suppressing a hiccup, John remembered his academic duty. "Excuse me," he announced, leaning over the plastic table. "Would you two be willing to act as key informants for a university research project? We can conduct in-depth, intimate interviews back at my suite at the Landmark Hotel nearby. Naturally, the research fund will compensate you with a stipend of 8,000 baht." Bang blinked, sizing him up with practiced efficiency. "You talk too much, Tirak. Research mean boom boom, ka." "Well," Professor John replied smoothly, "I suppose you refer to intimate physical intercourse. From a purely epistemological standpoint, achieving physical alignment often helps researcher and participant get on the exact same wavelength." Bang didn't know what the hell John was talking about, but she grinned widely. "Oh ho, sounds so high class. Okay, I go with you, you handsome, heart-good Farong, nah. I am flexible regarding methodology," John added hastily. "We can explore alternative pathways of intimate embrace. Something more focused on tactile therapy." "Penai?" Bang tilted her head, confused. "What you mean, Papa? You mean happy ending massage, Mai?" "Precisely," John beamed. "I notice you have remarkably small, nimble hands." Data collection. Sitting in the humid night air, John attempted to execute his structured interview protocol. "From a socio-economic perspective, what primary factors motivated your entry into this sector?" he asked naively. "Or put more simply, why do you work as a hostess on Sukhumvit Road?" Bang shrugged, nursing her drink. "My papa die already, drink too much, Lao. Mama have new boyfriend, useless, no good. I want buy big house for family in Isan, cost 1 million baht. But now I need 100,000 baht fast, ka." John's academic heart melted. "Well, I can certainly accelerate your short-term financial targets. If our field session goes well, I shall allocate 20,000. Bang's eyes went wide. Up to you 20,000 baht? Ow. You so generous, handsome professor. Sui Mak, so Sanak tonight. Back in the air-conditioned sanctuary of the landmark suite, the qualitative research commenced. Bang and AM approached what John grandly referred to in his internal monologue as his middle leg with a level of delicate reverence usually reserved for religious relics or minor saints. Details of the night were somewhat hazy, a fog induced by jet lag, humidity, and excessive Singapore, but John was confident that groundbreaking ethnographic data was being gathered. The day after. By 4 o'clock the following afternoon, the research session was winding down. John had awakened AM, encouraging her to continue practicing her manual manipulation techniques in a desperate bid to rouse his little general, who had been asleep on duty and standing at ease for far too long. Bang provided auxiliary support from the rear, gently massaging his family jewels as though polishing a pair of priceless rubies destined for the British crown jewels. Reflecting on the scene, John felt a fleeting blush of academic embarrassment. It was, he admitted, behavior slightly beneath the dignity of a former academic stallion. Yet another, more pragmatic side of his brain took over. As the years rolled by and his stallion days inevitably yielded to pony days, perhaps Bang and AM could be retained on a permanent grant as personal geriatric nurses. There was no reason why advancing age should entirely deprive a Scandinavian scholar of specialized physical therapy. Flashback. In his younger days, John had driven a medical transport vehicle for elderly patients, and one profound clinical observation had stayed with him ever since: an aging gentleman might lose his teeth, his hearing, his mobility, and his short-term memory, but two human faculties remained indestructible. First, the capacity to talk utter nonsense from sunrise to sunset with supreme confidence, something which has been evidenced by various senile U.S. presidents over the last 40 years. Second, an unyielding interest in the female posterior and venous mound, something which has also been evidenced by U.S. presidents of advanced age, who have announced, they like it when you grab or pinch it. The nurses John spoke to at the time corroborated this evidence, saying, "It's not wise to turn your back on these senile old goats, as they will often pinch your behind." There, John Thomases, as D.H. Lawrence might have phrased it, may have retired from active military duty decades prior, but the imagination remained fully deployed. Like the aging libertines of the Marquis de Sade or the rock stars of the 1970s, they simply couldn't get no satisfaction, yet they never stopped trying. The final note. By the time the sun began to set over Bangkok, Bang and AM announced it was time to depart. Before leaving, they insisted on ordering a lavish final meal through hotel room service to celebrate the completion of the study. The table was soon laden with soft shell crab, steamed fish, exotic fruit platters, and top-shelf cognac, transforming the suite into a royal banquet hall. John lay back against the plush pillows, feeling a deep sense of scholarly accomplishment. He had combated Western media bias, empowered two-third world female entrepreneurs, and enjoyed a thoroughly invigorating therapeutic weekend. "Professor John," Bang whispered softly as she adjusted her newly acquired designer handbag at the door. "Thank you so much, Na. Research with you so Sanak, bye-bye, Tirak." "Think nothing of it, my dear," John said, offering a magnanimous wave from the bed. "Science thanks you." As the door clicked shut, John stretched, reached for his leather wallet on the nightstand to check his remaining currency, and found it strangely light. In fact, it was completely empty. Panicked, he scrambled over to his briefcase. His corporate Polar University credit card was gone. His emergency stash of $2,000 US dollars was gone. Even his custom-engraved silver Parker pen was nowhere to be found. Sinking onto the edge of the bed, his eye caught a small, handwritten note propped up against the room service bill, which had been charged directly to his room, alongside charges for the hotel's premium minibar and a 5,000 baht spa package. Written in neat, round handwriting on landmark hotel stationery was a final message from his key research participants. Dear Professor John, thank you for teaching us about global capitalism, Ka. As smart female entrepreneurs, we decide escape poverty today. We take your $100,000 research grant money from laptop bag already. We go buy big house and buffalo in Isen now. Good luck report to Polar University, Na. Love and Chuck D. Bang and AM CEOs. The post debrief. 2 weeks later, the climate in Tromsø was minus 12 degrees Celsius, a stark, freezing contrast to the humid alleyways of Bangkok. Inside the administrative building of the Polar University, Professor John MacLeod sat on a very hard wooden chair across from Dean Gudrun Lindqvist. Between them lay a glossy, 50-page expense report, a stack of flagged credit card statements, and an empty black leather laptop bag. Dean Lindqvist slowly adjusted her spectacles, her eyes locking onto John with the warmth of an Arctic blizzard. Professor MacLeod, she began, her voice dangerously calm. I have reviewed your preliminary field report for Project Gender Dynamics and Socio-Economic Agency in the Global South. I must say, the academic prose is remarkably creative. Thank you, Gudrun, John said, offering a tight, dignified smile while crossing his legs. I felt it vital to avoid the sterile, clinical detachedness of traditional sociology. Indeed, she said, tapping a red pen against a printout. So creative, in fact, that I am struggling to reconcile your theoretical framework with these itemized receipts from the landmark Hotel Bangkok. She cleared her throat and began reading aloud from the ledger. Item 1, Tactile Ethnographic Fieldwork Session with Key Informants Bang and AM, 8,000 Norwegian kroner. Item 2, Cognac Assisted Epistemological Calibration, 4,500 kroner. Item 3, Emergency Socio-Economic Empowerment Transfer, 25,000 US dollars. Drawn directly from the university's primary research grant account. Ah, John said smoothly, raising a finger. A necessary capital outlay, Gudrun. As I outlined in Section 3, one cannot truly critique the extractive mechanisms of Western hegemony without actively engaging in the transactional matrix oneself. To observe exploitation, one must temporarily assume the persona of the bourgeois oppressor. You spent $90,000 of state research money in 3 days, John. Dean Lindqvist slammed her hands on the desk. And where, precisely, is the raw data? Where are the transcribed audio recordings? Where is the university-issued encrypted laptop? John cleared his throat, adjusting his tweed jacket and spectacles. The physical repository of the research data, along with the laptop, the grant funds, and my silver Parker pen, underwent an unscripted redistribution of capital. Dean Lindqvist stared at him. You were robbed. I prefer the term empowered field agency, John corrected gently. The research subjects, demonstrating precisely the razor-sharp entrepreneurial initiative I hypothesized in my literature review, executed a localized wealth redistribution strategy. In a very real sense, Bang and AM validated my entire thesis. They stole the entire $100,000 grant to buy a cattle farm and a 2-story house in Isen, she shouted, waving a police report printout. They left you a handwritten thank you note calling themselves CEOs. Which proves my point about Daniel Defoe. John insisted, leaning forward with sudden academic passion. They are not helpless victims of global systemic oppression, Gudrun. They are vibrant, self-actualized economic actors. The study was a resounding success. Silence hung heavy in the dean's office for a long, excruciating minute. Dean Lindqvist rubbed her temples, looking as though she were contemplating an early retirement to Spain. In fact, She had gone online and was now learning Spanish through an AI-powered language app downloaded to her iPhone. Professor McLeod, she said quietly, picking up her phone. You have two choices. Either you write a peer-reviewed monograph explaining how two Thai street hostesses outsmarted the entire Polar University sociology department, and you pay back the room service cognac out of your own salary. Or? John asked cautiously. Or your next mandatory fieldwork project will be a 5-year, unfunded qualitative study on the mating habits of the North Svalbard walrus. On site. Starting in November. I shall begin drafting the monograph immediately, John said with deep scholarly conviction. And I believe I will title it, The Eisen Experiment, How Global Capitalism Reinvests in the Rural Sector.